Hey, this is the first episode of the Social Assassin podcast. This is pretty much a short and to the point podcast centered around discussing social interactions gone wrong. I'd also eventually like to occasionally talk about what it's like being a musician and what it's like to follow your dreams. But I think for these first couple episodes, I'd like to stick close to telling stories about things that have happened to me and how I reacted to those things.
This is one that's really not a big deal at all, but it drives me crazy. And it's when people, okay, you're walking into a fast food place, or it could be out of, but it usually happens to me going in for whatever reason. And I happen to just get to the door a split second before someone is coming out. And so I grab the door and hold it open for them and wait for them when I could just charge through because I have the door. But I always, when man or woman, young, old, anything, doesn't matter. Purple fucking alien. I hold the door. I hold the door and I try not to make too much eye contact or anything. And 9 times out of 10, no, let's say 1 out of 2 times, the person, man, woman, child, whatever sex or race, will walk right through. Oh, you can't say child. That's only talking about adults. Doesn't matter male or female or the race. 1 out of 2 times will walk right through the door and not even look at me, not even say anything, like I'm their dirty personal doorman for that moment. And I really can't stand that. So, the way I handle it, and for the record, I'm not advocating anyone to act the way I do in society. Even though this is a very subtle thing that I do, someone could knock me out the next time I say it. Now, mind you, I've studied Kung Fu, so I know how to not get hit as well as hit. But even so, maybe this person that I piss off, this hypothetical person that I piss off, or you might piss off if you take my advice, they could knock me out. And I need to learn how to not lose my train of thoughts like this. So anyways, the way I deal with this, and please don't repeat this, is if someone walks through that door that I'm holding open and they look at me like I'm their dirty fucking doorman, as soon as enough seconds have gone by that they're not going to say anything and they're starting to show their just you're starting to only see their backside, always, doesn't matter what you look like or who you are, I say, you're welcome. And every time I've ever done that, no one has ever turned around or ever said anything to me. And again, I'm not advocating for anyone to act the way I do. But personally, from my experience, 100% of the time, the kind of person that'll walk through a door and not say a door that you've held open and not say thank you is the type of person that if you fire back a little insult without swearing or being too disrespectful, they'll do nothing because they're just a certain type of people. And I don't want to try to describe it because everyone is different, but they have that same weakness in them that makes them be shitty to their fellow man. And that's what riles me up.
I'll give a second story. How about that? This is one where I'm actually on the other side of the gun, the metaphorical gun. I don't advocate for any violence against anyone, for the record. So, I go to see a concert. A friend of mine was playing in downtown Toronto at a reputable venue, and he's in a good band. And so myself and a number of friends go down to check him out, and afterwards we end up at a bar. So there's me, there's myself, I'm going to change the names of everyone here. So that these people that I'm talking about now are professionals in their field of work anyways. I'm kidding, I love you guys. Okay, so I'm going to change the names. So first friend, we're going to call him Jim. The second friend, we're going to call Frank the Tank. Friend number 3 is Al Khram. And then, so those are my three friends who were men. And there was 2 women with us as well. That we'd all gone to high school. And we were about 25 now, 26 at this point. I'm 31, so this is 5 years ago. Anyways, the 2 women, I'm going to change their names too. First girl's name, we'll say Marilyn with the blonde hair. And the other one will go Lucy Lou. So we go to see a friend perform, and then us as a, what's that, 6 some. The show's over, and the guy in the band then goes off and does his thing. I believe he ended up meeting a young woman, actually, who was interested in him. And anyways, so after the show, it was one of those nights where I really didn't want to go out, but I was trying to make myself be social, so I went anyways. And that often backfires. It's like you don't want to feel like a loser sitting at home. But then I go out and then I'm just awkward. And I'm not always awkward when I go out to a bar or whatever. But if I'm not feeling going out that night, I'm going to be awkward. So anyways, I force myself to go out. We're at the show. Yada, yada, yada. I've said that 3 times. I hope you're still with me. And I'm not really paying attention, but all of a sudden after the show, we're just in an alley drinking liquor out of a bottle that was an obvious place by either Jim or Frank, so that to save money, right? So we're chugging liquor out of this bottle, and I'm thinking, this is going to be a bumpy ride. I just know it. And then we end up going, after we're done in the alley, we go down to a pub. We've been at a venue, now we're going to like a pub style bar. And I'm going to change the name of this place as well because it's reputable. We'll call it the Nova Scotia House. So we got in, no problem. And I'm just feeling awkward, yada, 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 trying to be social with my friends and with strangers, and it's just not happening. I ended up excusing myself to go to the bathroom. I come back to my group of friends, and Frank the Tank now has his dress shirt wide open and no safety shirt. And for those of you that are not in the know with my group of friends slang, the safety shirt is your undershirt. So that's when you get too drunk. You want to wear a safety shirt if you're going to get too drunk, because chances are that dress shirt is coming open, no matter what's under there. So Frank's got no safety shirt. The dress shirt's wide open. His flabs and hair, the halos of hair around the nipples are just glowing in this bar. And and I'm like, great, bumpity bump. This ride is we're bumping here. I don't know. I take a round of the place. I come back, and now Frank he's hunched over the bar, standing with his head in his arms, and he's practically passed out drunk asleep on the bar. And of course, before I can even get to him, a bouncer grabs him, and then there's El Khram, friend number 2, Jim, and myself, the bouncer, and Frank the Tank. And the bouncer looks at us and goes, who's the leader here? Like it's some sort of, like there's some sort of alpha male thing going on in our clique. I hate that term, alpha male. If that would be a social assassin moment I could never have. I would kill that out of our lexicon, metaphorically. No, it'll never happen. Anyways, El Khram picks up the lead and talks to the bouncer. He informs us we need to go. We can get our stuff. He's not going to physically throw us out, but we need to go. So at this point, we make our way to the door. We get outside. We're in between the entrance to the house, to the bar, and the lineup to get in. And all of us have made it out except for Marilyn and I don't want to say the real name. Marilyn and Frank were still inside. The Halos, Frank. So I noticed that there's a group of 8 to 11 Eastern European gents
waiting to get in. They're right at the front of the line. And they're sort of eyeing Lucy Liu, the other girl that's in our group. And they're not doing anything too bad, but they're making her uncomfortable. And at this point, Jim, who you haven't really gotten to know in the story, and I've purposely left him out because he plays the most important role from here on out. Jimmy, who is Mr. Leahy drunk at this point, realizes what's going on with the Eastern European guys eyeing Lucy. And he says in their direction, "Those creeps are staring at Lucy." So the Eastern European guys couldn't really hear him, and they start all chirping up. 2 or 3 of them go, "What'd he say? What'd he say? You call us creeps?" And at this point, I had a moment where I could have put the safety on the social assassin's rifle. And it ended up backfiring. I could have put my hand over Jimmy's mouth. I really could have, and stopped him from saying something. But I wanted to see where this was going. We want to see. Come on, life's too short. You want to see where this is going. So I let him fire off a metaphorical round. And he says, "I didn't call you creeps. I called you fucking creeps." And as he says fucking, he spits in their direction. And it was like pouring gasoline on the fire. Multiple bouncers have to restrain this Eastern European gang. And they're asking me, "Can you guys please get out of here?" And at this point, the last 2 that were inside have joined us. So we're the 6th again. And we start making our way down Bloor Street, the opposite direction of the Scotia House. And we get about 20 paces away, and I hear what sounded like a light herd of elephants charging towards us. And in that moment, before I could even turn around, I knew that the Eastern European guys did not get into the bar, and they were going to take it out on us. So I turn around, and they weren't hitting any of the girls. The girls got out of the way. It was us 4 against, I really couldn't count because I had been drinking 8 to 11. And they're all 5'5" and under, and not incredibly muscular. So they're not huge guys. So as I turned around, we each get caught in a group. Each of my friends are each scoring off with a couple of them. There's 2 guys with me at the beginning. And I don't really remember what happened because that was a very quick encounter. Some pushes, some swears. I was trying not to be violent, but I was also trying to protect myself. I turn around and look, and I see Jimmy, who's the one who swore and spat at them, just to keep you guys on my trail here. Jim Leahy. Who is a big man. He's 200 pounds plus at this point. He's in the reserves, the Army Reserves of Canada. And if he had been sober, he could have taken on this entire group of guys and he would have destroyed them. But he was very intoxicated. As I said, Mr. Leahy drunk. So a few seconds into the fight, I'm concerned about him. He's helped me out in the past in high school in physical confrontations. Not that I needed help, but when there was unfair situations. When there was an unfair situation, I almost said his real name, was always there for me. Wouldn't fight my battles, but would make the odds even. And I was always wanted to be there for him, and this was my first opportunity. And I had grown physically a fair amount since high school as well. So I turn around, and there's Jimmy. 5 of these Eastern European ladies, I'm going to call them. They were men. They were acting like ladies. They had penises, just so I'm not confusing you. I'm sure. Small ones. And they are beating up on, I almost said his real name again. And he crumbles like you're pouring water on a paper bag. So I leave the 2 guys I'm squaring off with, and I make a mistake. I turn my back to a threat. Who cares? I don't even care. I'm trying to save my friend here. I run over. There's 5 on 1. So I run in. It's 1.5 because he's so drunk on 5. But he's a wet paper bag. No offense, bud, if you're listening. You were a wet paper bag at that point. You can kick my ass right now. Anyways, Anyways, I run over quickly. I throw one into two of them. So that takes out three real quick. Light bowling ball into two light pins. And now I'm just dealing with two. And my buddy, they're on the street. They're on Bloor Street. They're not even on the sidewalk. There's a gun could come out. A knife could come out at this point. This is very serious. A car, a bus, anything could hit us. This is scary. This is a social assassin moment. This is why you don't act the way my friends and I have acted. I can't advocate that enough. These are interesting stories, though. I guess if you wanted to start a podcast, it wouldn't be a bad way to get some material. And I wouldn't be offended if you ripped off the idea. Anyways, so now I'm just dealing with two. And I'm defending myself and I'm pushing them away from my friend who's on the ground. But I'm not really trying to hurt these last two. I'm kind of preaching defensive peace. And I get them away from my friend enough. I get my arm, I grab Jimmy by the scruff. And unfortunately, I don't think I've ever told him, but I ripped a nice, I believe it was a blue suit that he had, a light blue suit. I grabbed him like the scruff of a kitten, like I was the mother cat, though. I just needed to get him up, get him on his feet. You're not in danger. The head kicks to the head are a little harder once you're down there. I'm thinking survival at this point. Whew, take a breath. I'm right back there in this fight. I get him to his feet, but I'm holding him up. And these five guys are now, plus are coming back at us. And thank God I almost said the real bar name. The Scotia House bouncers saw what was happening, ran down, completely separated everything. And again, there could have been weapons that had not been pulled that were present in pockets and in belts, because these guys were men who fight 8 to 11 versus, what were we, 4? You know, even 8 versus 4, you're a coward if you're fighting, if you're trying to hurt someone, especially if you were creeping on a girl and then you don't get into a bar, blah, 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 blah. So anyways, these bouncers possibly saved it from escalating any further, and we got away from the situation and couldn't get into any more bars because we're mostly too drunk, and ended up back at our hotel safely.
And with that, I think I'm going to go out on a high note, as close to a high note as possible. I just want to say thanks for listening. I hope you tune into the next episode. I'm going to try to put out a new episode every month. Thank you. Goodbye.